What's up, football heads? Welcome back to that show. As always, I am your host, Kyle McQueen. We're back here on a glorious, beautiful Friday. Got a little bonus episode for you. Run through some news, a couple other talking points I wanted to get to that didn't get to on the recap shows or the pick show. First, I want to start. They put out the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the semifinalists for the year, which for me personally is always, of course, Jared Allen is on there. I don't care about the semis. I don't care about the finals. When are we putting my boy Jared Allen in the Hall of Fame? He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. You look at the numbers, there's guys getting in ahead of him that don't have the numbers, but like, no disrespect to Dwight Freeney, who is a Hall of Famer and belongs in the Hall of Fame, but he came up after Jared Allen. Jared Allen has better stats. Jared Allen was on more dominant defenses, even if it was only a couple years there in the 2000s. But Freeney has a Super Bowl. But it's not a quarter. Like, you want to measure Super Bowls for Hall of Fame. To me, if anything, it's a quarterback stat. Skill position players, defenders, it should not factor in that much. Again, this is not about Dwight Freeney. Dwight Freeney belongs in the Hall of Fame, and he is where he belongs. But we got to put Jared Allen in there. But we got Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Anquan Bolden, Jari Evans, Antonio Gates, James Harrison, Rodney Harrison, Torrey Holt, Luke Kuechly, Eli Manning, Robert Mathis, Freeney's running buddy for all those years in Indianapolis, Steve Smith Sr., T. Sizzle, Terrell Suggs, Fred Taylor, Earl Thomas, Adam Vinatieri, Hines Ward, Ricky Waters, Reggie Wayne, Richmond Webb, Vince Wilfork, Steve Wisniewski, Darren Woodson, and Marshall Yonda. A lot of good names on here. There's going to be a lot of snubs, which I guess is the general point I probably want to talk about is there's so many positions specifically where there's these log jams, and then there's years where it feels like, all right, we got more receivers coming up, so we got to clear the receiver log jam a little bit, which they have yet to clear the receiver log jam hardly. Like, Torrey Holt's still on here, and now Anquan Bolden, Steve Smith Sr., and there's only going to be more guys coming up. But it took Chris Carter to get in first ballot. Chris Carter retired, and he was second in virtually every category behind Jerry Rice. And Jerry Rice is Jerry Rice. And Chris Carter can't get in first ballot? Come on. T.O., we know what happened with T.O., Randy Moss. So, I don't know, they got to clear some of these out. But it's limiting the numbers. I get you don't want to just open it up to whoever gets in. But I do think it should be more of how I think it's how baseball does it, where it's like, if you get a percentage of, it's like vote yes or no. And if you get a percentage of yeses, you get in. The class might be big, might be small, might be whatever, but they got to clear some of these log jams out, because there's a lot of great players on here that should be in there. Great players that have been waiting, like Jared Allen, Darren Woodson's been waiting, and now you're going to start getting some of these offensive linemen from this past era. You got Marshall Yonda up here. We're still waiting on Willie Anderson. Who else? There was someone else from this recent era. I don't know. I can't find it. But, like Luke Kuechly was a guy that retired a little bit early, but he dominated the game. T. Sizzle and Robert Mathis now going to have to kind of wait, because, we got to put Jared Allen in before those guys. I'm sorry. If we're putting an edge rusher in this year, it's got to be Jared Allen. And we better be putting an edge rusher in this year, and it better be Jared Allen. But a lot of great players on here. Hines Ward, I forgot. Eli Manning, to me, is the name that stands out as the greatest debate, because I could be wrong about this. There might be one guy that won multiple Super Bowls that's not in the Hall of Fame. Jim Plunkett, is he in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. You guys can look that up on your own time. I'm not going to waste airtime on it. But it's like, oh, he won 2 Super Bowls, he's got to be in the Hall of Fame. But you look at especially 2007. He was having a terrible year. I attended a game, Giants and Vikings, in Old Giants Stadium, where Eli Manning threw 3 pick sixes through 4 picks in 2007 when they won the Super Bowl. He did not play well. He got hot in the end. It was really like Eli Manning, he had one really good year that I remember that they didn't go to the Super Bowl. And then the 2 Super Bowl years, I feel like he was not really playing great football, and then he got hot. And great for him, like they earned the Super Bowls. Like Eli Manning deserves to be remembered. But is he a Hall of Fame quarterback? I don't know. Like the debate they always say, like, oh, is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer? You're goddamn right, Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. You look at what he did week in and week out. But Eli Manning, just there was not a consistency of great play by any means. And like, yeah, you got the 2 Super Bowls, but like stud defenses, especially the defensive lines, getting after the quarterback. Like it wasn't even like he got red hot and they were dropping 35, 40 points in the playoffs in every game. Again, no disrespect to Eli Manning, who is a tremendous personality. He's great with him and Peyton on the Manning cast. But I don't, is he a Hall of Famer? I guess you tell me. Is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer or is he not a Hall of Famer? I don't know. I would lean no, but I'm also a guy who says Mike Vick should be in there because Mike Vick changed the game. Like we'd never seen anybody. We'd seen, Randall Cunningham could move around. My boy Fran Tarkenton back in the day was moving around. Like you had guys, but Mike Vick came in and it changed everything. Everybody remembers Madden 2004. You would play as the Falcons, you would get Mike Vick, and you might be on the opponent's 20-yard line, and you would run all the way back 80 yards into your own end zone and get all the defense coming at you just to see, like, okay, can I go 100 yards with Mike Vick with everybody loose? Like, can I just keep doubling back until I get a crease and catch, and like, just for fun? Like, you would do it, drive just to get down there, and then just do it like you weren't playing franchise mode. You weren't even playing the game. You were just playing to get in position to be able to run all the way back just to see if it was like a mini game that we all played within the game. Like Mike Vick, and obviously the dog fighting stuff and horrendous. And he obviously, he served jail time, came out rehabilitated, and has since done a lot of work for animal shelters and various like animal charities. So like he paid his debt to society, and now he's paying. He's doing work to help to make up for anything that he did that would have hurt. But so let's separate the two. But to me, Mike Vick, like when I think of a Hall of Fame, I think of I forget. I heard this from someone years and years ago, and it always stuck with me. Is a Hall of Fame it's the story of the sport or the league, if it's a league Hall of Fame. But it's, can you tell the story of the history of this sport without this guy? Like, can you really tell the full story without this guy? And to me, you cannot tell the full story of the NFL or football without Mike Vick. Now, you could say, can you do it without Eli Manning? Probably not, because of that '07 Pats team and whatnot. But that to me is more why, is because he quarterbacked the team that beat the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. What would have been the most dominant team of all time. So it was really more about the Pats. If he just won those 2 Super Bowls, you couldn't tell the story without talking about the Giants in that era. But it wasn't really focused on Eli. But I could be splitting hairs. So you let me know. Like I said, I lean no. The older I get, the more I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just put them all in there. Put everybody in there that I can drum. Put Sam Congato in the Hall of Fame for having a great name, for all I care. I don't know. Just put Jared Allen in. Put Jared Allen in this year. But speaking of Giants quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, has been cut from the New York Giants. I think they're going to owe him like $20 million or something like that. I'm not 100% sure if they got to pay more to cut him now as opposed to cutting him after the season. I'm not 100% sure on that. If it like is a detriment to them or if there's a benefit to it, I don't know. But I guess he went into a meeting with ownership and said, like, listen, just cut me. Because like they demoted him to third string quarterback, and all with the injury guarantees coming up in the contract, where it's like you don't want him to get hurt because then you owe him more money, and that they kind of just were like, all right, we're gonna tuck you back there. But we've seen situations happen. San Francisco a couple years ago in the playoffs against the Eagles, where guys just keep getting hurt, and then Daniel Jones might have to come back in. So then they sign my favorite, Tim Boyle, the worst quarterback, the worst professional quarterback of all time. This man threw more interceptions than touchdowns in college, somehow got into the league, somehow is still in the league, somehow just got signed to a team in the league as the third quarterback. So God help us if Tommy Cutlets goes down, if Drew Lock goes down, we got to watch Tim Boyle football. I don't want to see it. Nobody wants to see it. Not even Tim Boyle's family wants to see it. I don't even think Tim Boyle wants to see it. But, Daniel Jones, he's your fourth string practice squad quarterback now. Literally started every game this season for you. It's weird. It's a distraction. So, sometimes you see a guy go to ownership after something happens like this, and he's just like, I get me out of here. And it's like, I get why you want to get out of there, but it's kind of like an emotional response. This, whether it's emotional or not, I genuinely feel like it's probably the best move to just get him out of the building at this point. If you're going to have him as your fourth string practice squad quarterback, just cut him, let him go somewhere else where maybe he might re-sign next year as a backup and get a head start on things. Before he even got cut, there had been some, I wouldn't say scuttlebutt, but just reckless speculation. Shouts out the Purple Daily guys, but of, could Daniel Jones be a viable backup for the Vikings next year behind J.J. McCarthy, who also has some mobility to his game? Let's use that as an example. He could latch on now, come sign with us for the vet minimum because he's already making his money, and he can't make any more money. So the same thing with Russell Wilson signing with the Steelers. So sign for the vet minimum. It's not going to really, every team has cap contingency built into the plan, or they should at least. And I know that the Vikings do. So if Kwesi brings him in, vet minimum, if they're interested in him at all in the future, you bring him in now. He can learn the playbook now and just, get a head start on things, know his teammates, and then if he likes the situation, re-sign in the offseason to be the backup. And you got a jump start on that process. So it makes sense for him in an actual football way. And then from a Giants perspective, it's a distraction. It's, questions that someone's always going to say hey, what if all these guys get injured? Are you gonna put them in there, or are you gonna sign someone else? It's just, you get him out of the building, you're still gonna have to answer questions, but it's you answer them all right now about him getting cut, and then you have the built-in excuse if someone brings something up we're only worried about us and our opponent this upcoming week. We got a great group of guys, and both teams played hard, and we're here to talk about us, and I'm only going to talk about the guys in this building, all that shit. So I think it makes sense from both sides. But I do think that's probably the move for Daniel Jones, is see if you can latch on somewhere that you might see yourself as a backup next year. Or, maybe if you're still optimistic, you think, let me go sign somewhere where I might have a chance to compete for a starting job next year, and then I can get the leg up. Let's say Russ got cut financially wasn't feasible, but if he got cut last year, signed on with Pittsburgh, who was dealing with, not great quarterback play, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph played pretty well, but they knew he wasn't the guy that, if Russ had come in last year, might have got a leg up and learned. I mean, obviously they end up replacing their offensive coordinator anyway, but it could be a benefit to him to take a peek around and see who's interested and see if any of these are spots that he could see himself in next year and possibly beyond, and get in now and, just get familiar with everything and see if it's the right fit, in a multitude of ways, culture-wise, football-wise, whatever the case may be. But now, speaking of backup quarterbacks, Brock Purdy out on Sunday. Brandon Allen is in. And Nick Bosa is also out, which Caesar alluded to being a strong possibility on the pick show. But with Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa out, listen, Is Fred Warner playing? Yes. If Fred Warner's playing, I don't care. I'm picking San Francisco. But Brock Purdy's out. Brandon Allen's in. You can do much worse than Brandon Allen. It could be Tim Boyle. But it's not. It's Brandon Allen in Lambeau. They got a lot of injury issues, riddled with injuries, as Caesar has been reminding me all day. And he fought me on this, and I won because the pick show is his show, but it is my show. It's my show. It's our show. It's all of our show, but I make the rules. And the rule is until kickoff, I can amend my pick as long as I make it public. And so I'm making it public now. I am on the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love. It was never in doubt. This was always the plan. This was the plan. Pick the Niners. Something crazy was going to happen to make my pick look stupid. And then we circle back and amend. And I picked the right time to pop in, make a new rule for the amendments. So I'm amending. I am on Green Bay. Was deep down, I was always on Green Bay. I was always Packers fans. I don't like. I like you guys. Well, I like some of you. I like Gavin. The rest of you, there's a handful. Shouts out Michael McIntyre back in Ewing, New Jersey. I don't know where he is now, but shouts out to him. Shouts out to the good Packers fans who can engage in a discourse and not these clowns wearing the cheese heads, shirtless and fucking minus 15-degree weather, and that's Fahrenheit. But the Packers, I have to hate them because they've abused my Vikings for decades. So, yeah, I hate the Packers. I don't want to pick the Packers. But, of course, I was going to pick the Packers. San Francisco, let's be real. A team from sunny California going into Lambeau in November to play the Packers, no shot. Never had a shot. Brock Purdy could have been in there. They had no shot. But he's out because I jinxed him. Brandon Allen's in, and now they have absolutely no shot. Green Bay is going to wipe the floor with the Niners, put them under 500, and then they're going to be clinging to a glimmer of hope. But I will say, for as much as I've been on the Cincinnati Bengals for being trash, being a tease, not being a good team, and that we need to stop talking about them, even though here I am yet again talking about them, but this is only to make a comparison. If the San Francisco 49ers lose this game, they're on the hook, and they get one more week. And if they don't look good, if they lose and they don't look good the next week, even if they win, but if they don't look good doing it the next week, the Niners got to be the next team that we got to look at and say, you know what? It ain't their year. They're not that good. They're not good enough this year. We got to let them go. We got to let them go, and we'll circle back next year. The Niners could be the new Bengals. We'll see how that goes, but they got this week and they got next week. But they ain't going to get it done this week because a team from sunny California going to go into Lambeau in November and win a game against the Green Bay. They're red hot. Win this, they could be white hot. Green Bay Packers never stood a chance. But speaking of never standing a chance, both Caesar and I said, the Browns, they might have a glimmer of a hope, but they don't got a chance against Pittsburgh Steelers. We decided last week after they beat the Ravens, Steelers, they finally get a signature win. We got to take the Steelers entirely and fully seriously as an 8-2 team. Maybe they're not a top contender, but they got to be considered a contender. And then they get a little snow on the ground. You get the lake effect out there in Cleveland, and they come out and they lose a game to previously a 2-win Cleveland Browns team. Jameis Winston said it. You don't truly become a Cleveland Brown until you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, which means there was probably about a decade worth of guys that may have played years for the Cleveland Browns that were never Cleveland Browns because they ain't beat fucking Pittsburgh for how long. But Baker Mayfield destroyed that in the playoffs. It's a brand new world. Jameis Winston, he walked through that wide open door, handled business. I was working during this game, so my full attention was not on the game, for full disclosure. But you love to see a snow game. It was beautiful. I could have hit a parlay, almost hit a parlay. I needed a George Pickens touchdown. Russ missed him in the end zone. I think it was in the third quarter. And then they throw the Hail Mary late. And George Pickens, he's your tallest receiver. He's your most athletic, most skilled receiver. Is George Pickens fighting for position to jump up to try and steal this Hail Mary? No. George Pickens is just fighting. Just fighting Steelers players, trying to fight fans, whatever the case may be. I like George Pickens. He was a guy that it may have been the Pat McAfee show. It may have been Mark Caboli coming on during the offseason talking about what was going on in training camp. And I am a firm believer. Like, there's a lot of shit that gets said in training camp that's complete shit. But there are players, if you keep your nose to the ground, keep your antennas up, you can identify players that are ready to make some kind of jump in some capacity. If you're really paying attention and you watch the preseason games and you kind of wade through the bullshit and the coach speak, you can usually identify a player on every team that it's like, okay, we might not know about this guy. Diehard fans of the team might barely know about the guy, but there's something going on there that they like, that this guy's going to get some run. And Pickens, a lot of talk about him his rookie year, so I kind of honed in on that. That was my 1 year I came back in fantasy, and I had George Pickens on my team. He helped me win a championship. So I'm always have a soft spot for Pickens, but I don't know if he's long for Pittsburgh, man. It just feels like there's a lot of this shit. And then after the game, he downplayed Cleveland. Oh, it's it was the weather. A Pittsburgh Steeler complaining about the weather. Come on, man. So if they kick Antonio Brown out of there, they kick Deontay Johnson out of there, how long until it's like, all right, we can't deal with this guy just fighting people? Like, he's the guy. He's the guy who should be going up to try and get the Hail Mary, and he's busy swinging at dudes in the middle of the, like, go up, try and catch the ball, and whether you catch it or not, then swing on him. Like, the guy's still going to be there. Just finish the play and then swing on the guy and deal with the consequences later. But always good to see a snow game. Great win for Cleveland. That's one of those rivalries where, like, one team is always really good, the Steelers, and the other one is always really bad, the Browns. And for the Browns, it's like, we can lose 16 games, but if that one win is against Pittsburgh, we can go home happy. So Cleveland fans, they've been going through it. It felt like they were finally back, and then everything goes haywire with Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski. But then you go get Deshaun Watson, that which at the time even was like, I don't know about getting this guy, much less giving him the first fully guaranteed contract of that magnitude. And then that has gone horribly wrong. So you got to feel for Browns fans, but you get a big win against the Steelers, something to hang your hat on, something to gloat about to your Steelers fans, friends. So shouts out to them. And for the Steelers, man, it's a tough loss. It's a tough loss because I went through the schedules recently, and it became a situation where, even though they were at least a game and a half up on Baltimore after beating them last week, like they got that 3-game chunk where it's like it's Baltimore, Philly, and Kansas City, I want to say. Like, that's a tough stretch. You get to those games and you can't pull those off. Like, the Ravens have an opportunity, even still being a game and a half back coming into this week. If they handle business on Monday night against the Chargers, you're back to only a half game out. All you got to do is beat Pittsburgh when you play them again and keep pace. So I don't know, the losing to a team, a 2-win team, if you're 8-2 and you just gotta, like, just a little cushion. Just a little cushion. Anytime you can go into a weekend, it's like, even if we lose and the other team wins, we're still in first place. It's like, all right, we got a little bit of cushion, and then you lose to the 2-win Browns. It's rough. It's rough, man. The Steelers offense for most of the season has been good enough. They've controlled the ball. They've done what they needed to do. But it's there's been stretches of games these last few weeks where they're just not doing anything. And we saw Justin Fields get a little bit of run. I don't know if that's the solution. Put it, just because of his running ability, to put him in there opens up some other options in the playbook, maybe. I don't know if that's the solution or if that's going to make a weird situation. But like, I feel like Russ has been through enough where like he can handle it. He can handle like, hey, we're going to put Fields out there for a few plays just to like mix things, the way they do with Taysom Hill with the Saints. So I don't know, but that's not a loss you want on your schedule if you're Pittsburgh, knowing you're gonna be in a dogfight the rest of the season with Baltimore for that division. So tough game, tough look for Pickens, but not a tough look for Mike Evans, who I've been saying weekly. Baker is fighting his ass off to keep Tampa Bay in these games without Mike Evans and without Chris Godwin, and Godwin's out for the season. But they're going to get Mike Evans back. Look at the schedule. They got a soft schedule down the stretch. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Tampa Bay can win 10 games this year. We forget how good they were early in the year. The only team in the league to beat the best team in the league, the Detroit Lions. And it looks like all signs are pointing to Mike Evans is going to be back this week. They're going to have their guy back. And again, Godwin's out for the year. But like, they almost beat the Chiefs without both those guys. They almost beat the Niners without both those guys. And again, we're starting to get to the point where the Niners might be in Bengals territory. But I mean, those are your two Super Bowl representatives from last year. And Tampa Bay almost beat them without both of their top receivers. So you're getting one back. Mike Evans, we know about the numbers that he puts up year after year after year. I don't remember when I said it on one of these shows at some point here in the last like month or two. Mike Evans is the Frank Gore of receivers. It maybe is not the sexiest, even though he does catch a ton of deep balls, but like it's not talked about. Like Mike Evans is never listed in these debates of, who's the best receiver in football, who are the top 5 receivers in football. But it's just year after year, 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Like he's rock solid, nonstop every single year. He's a true number 1 receiver. He going back to the Hall of Fame stuff. Like Mike Evans, if he retired today, is a Hall of Famer. It's probably gonna take him 10 years because of the logjam, but Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer. You can't discredit what he's done. So having him back is huge. Like I said, Baker, I think, has kept the fire alive in that team where like Godwin and Evans both go down, you lose a couple games, it's easy to just be like, well, we're fucked. We were really good, but luck just isn't with us. We're fucked. Baker, with his mentality, has kept the fires burning. So now you get Mike Evans back. Now it's like, all right, let's hit the ground running. Let's get a dub. Let's get back in the win column. And I want to see what the Bucs schedule looks like here. Let's see who they got coming up. They got the Giants this weekend. At the Giants, that's a winnable game. You got the Panthers, winnable game. You got the Raiders, winnable game. That's their next 3 games are against 3 of the worst teams in football. Now, granted, the Panthers are on a 2-game winning streak, and the Giants do have Tommy Cutlets coming back into the fold. But even still, like, you can handle that. You get Mike Evans back, reel off 3 straight wins. Now you're 7-6. You're back over 500. Who knows where the Falcons are going? The Falcons have lost a few straight or a couple straight. Looked terrible against Denver last weekend. So you win 3 straight, you're at 7-6. Who knows where the Falcons are at? The Falcons got some tough games coming up. I know they got Minnesota in a couple weeks, but they're on a bye this week, and then they got the Chargers and the Vikings. So those are 2 losable games. They could be at 6-7. Bucks could be at 7-6 by the time we roll into the December 15th games. And then the Bucks, they got the Chargers. That's a tough game. Then they got the Cowboys in Dallas, where Dallas cannot win. The Panthers and the Saints again. Like, even if they lose that Chargers game, so what did I say? The Bucks could get to 10-7. They should and they will be favored in 6 of their final 7 games. You add the 6 wins to the 4 they got now, that's 10-7. The Falcons, 6-5. They got the Chargers and the Vikings. Now they get the Raiders and the Giants, so that helps, and the Panthers. So that's 3 winnable games. That's 9 wins. But if they lose to the Chargers and they lose to the Vikings, with Kirk having to go back to Minnesota, which that could go either way. We'll see. We will see. And then they got at Washington in the penultimate week of the season. Like those are 3 teams that I think right now you would look at and say are better and are playing better than the Falcons. So if everything goes chalk for the Falcons and everything goes chalk for the Bucks, Falcons are 9-8, Bucks are 10-7. They win the division, probably. I don't think the Saints, if they win out, could get it done, but the writing is on the wall there. If the Falcons are going to need to beat a team that's better than them, or the Bucks are going to come out and steal this thing. So Mike Evans back, that's huge. Great week to get him back. They're coming off the bye, I believe, so you get an extra week of full rest. And then you just got winnable games: Giants, Panthers, Raiders. You're at the Giants, you're in Jersey, you're at the Panthers, but again, 2 bad teams. The Giants are playing terribly. The Panthers, like I said, are on a win streak, but the Bucks should be able to handle business. I think they'll get it done. Where do I want to go? I guess Mike Evans is out, or Mike Evans is back in. Devonta Smith for the Eagles is out. So now I said it. The Eagles have a ton of great weapons. You got Devonta Smith, you got A.J. Brown, you got Dallas Goedert. Obviously, you got Saquon Barkley. It's at the point where, like, as long as Jalen Hurts isn't turning the ball over 2-3 times a game, he just kind of has to exist, and they can get it done. Their offensive line's playing well, and their defense is playing lights out. Caesar and I debated. He was not confident in the Rams' offense. I said Matt Stafford threw 4 touchdowns, no interceptions last week. They got Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. That's a Super Bowl winning combination. You got Cooper Kupp, you got Puka Nacua, you got Kyron Williams. So they got the pieces. The Rams were not healthy earlier in the year. They're getting healthier. They got all their weapons. Eagles, still pretty healthy, missing one of their weapons. I still like the Eagles in this game. I am not amending my pick for this game. But it kind of, I don't know if it changes the calculus, but it shifts it just a little bit. It's one less weapon. Now you can kind of key in on A.J. Brown a little bit more. It makes it easier to say, you know what, we're gonna bracket A.J. Brown all day. We're gonna double cover him all day. We're gonna have a safety up top on him all day and make sure that he's not making these crazy plays. Because, like, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are 2 of the best deep ball receivers in the game. Now, they also do a ton of other things really well, but you see him catching these deep bombs. Like A.J. Brown this week, Devonta Smith the next week. And you can't bracket them both. You can't double them both. But if one of them's out, and that's when the Eagles kind of had their biggest struggles of the season. Now, there was a stretch where they were missing both of them. But when one of those guys was out, it's on one hand you look at it and say, well, it's just one piece. We still got all these other weapons. But what it does for a defense and allowing them to key in on, in the secondary, we are keyed in on stopping A.J. Brown. Front 7, obviously the focus is Saquon Barkley, and you're not going to stop Saquon. The best you can hope for is to just slow him down and not have 200 scrimmage yards like he did last week, or almost had 200 scrimmage yards like he did last week. So it's not insignificant. To me, it's not enough for me to switch my pick off of the Eagles, but I wouldn't have been surprised if the Rams beat them, because the Rams are a good team. I watched them in person this year. Matt Stafford is Matt Stafford. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams I've been a fan of his entire career, because for whatever reason, I started betting him early, because it was like, who's Kyron Williams? Like, he feels like he scores every week, and you get good odds on him as a rookie, because he's a rookie. He wasn't a proven commodity. Now you can't get good odds on the kid, but they got weapons. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they won before, but I will be less surprised now if they win, because Devonta Smith being out, you take out just one piece, and it changes what the Eagles can do in response to what they're seeing. Because if both guys are out there, there's always going to be one guy that's single covered. And these are two great receivers. But now A.J. Brown's just going to be doubled the whole time. So it's going to make life a little harder for the Eagles offense, but their defense is playing lights out right now, like I said. So it might be a closer game. It might come down to the last possession, but they should still have enough to get it done. And speaking of getting it done, my 8-2 Minnesota Vikings and the amount of disrespect that is still thrown at my boys on a weekly basis. And it's not even like 2 years ago. I complained about this on the pick show that all these stat sheet pencil neck geeks out there that want to throw DVOA around like it's the gospel that the Vikings are frauds. The Vikings are frauds. If you look at the DVOA, the Vikings are frauds. I would rather them not talk about us than talk about us, to be completely honest. And that's how the disrespect is coming, is they're not talking about us. There was something that came out, I think it was on Get Up a couple days ago, where who's the biggest threat to Detroit in the NFC? Is it Green Bay? Is it Philadelphia? Or is it the Rams? You mean the 500 Rams? Yes, the Rams beat the Vikings in whose house? Their house, even though it was 50% purple that night. But we putting the Rams in that conversation, but we're not going to put the Vikings in that conversation at 8-2? Really? Really? Do y'all even watch ball? Do you know that the Vikings are undefeated with Blake Cashman in the lineup? Are you aware of these things? And Blake Cashman is in the lineup. So I don't know. Other than the Bucs, who beat Detroit in a revenge game from the playoffs last year, who's played Detroit tougher than the Vikings? The Vikings had the lead with 2 minutes left, inside 2 minutes, whatever it worked out to be. Actually, I think it was before that, because then they drove down and they scored, and then it was inside 2 minutes. Or I'm lying. No, that's not how it played out. Regardless, Vikings had the lead late in that game. Jumped out to a 10-0 lead, took that onslaught in the second and third quarters where it's just the Detroit just touchdown, settled in, got key stops in the fourth quarter, took the lead, took the ball away and took the lead, and almost beat them. But we're not in the conversation, but the Rams are in the conversation. And no disrespect to the Rams, but they're 5-5. How are they in the conversation, but the Vikings ain't in the conversation? Like, what? How the Niners not in the conversation? You say, well, if the Niners get healthy by the end of the year, they were in the Super Bowl last year. They're 5-5. I don't get it, man. The national media Muppets, and I like Greeny, but the national media Muppets, they gotta stop silently disrespecting my Vikings. But at the same time, I hope they don't, because I'd rather them just not talk about us at all until we're hoisting that Lombardi, baby. But I will also, to tie it back to the Daniel Jones point, because I wanted to bring this up in regards to the Vikings. Vikings fans know this. I don't know if anyone else knows this, but Vikings fans know this. The only reason Daniel Jones got paid is the 2 games that he played against the Minnesota Vikings in 2022, including that playoff game where he absolutely scorched an easy Ed Donatel defense. Ed Donatel is the reason Daniel Jones got paid, and it showed that winning a playoff game can actually set your franchise back multiple years, especially if they fire Dable. I would not fire Joe Shane. I would not fire Dable. I would give them an opportunity to draft their quarterback, their guy, because they didn't draft Daniel Jones. They were brought in, and in 1 year, he had his best year under them, and he played an excellent game of football in the playoffs, got a win in Minnesota against a 13-win football team. They ain't win no 13 games by mistake, despite what the DVOA nerds might want to tell you. And that game got him paid because they were handcuffed. They were backed into a corner. Do we pay the guy? Do we not pay the guy? Well, we got to pay the guy. If we don't pay the guy, people are going to be like, what are they doing? He just had a great season under your new regime. Like, what's the deal? Why aren't you bringing this guy back? He quarterbacked us to a playoff win. Now we're back to square one. What the hell are we doing? It's a risk because then you might draft a guy and he might be a bum. But then the flip side is you sign him, you give him $40 million a year, and then they had to suffer through some of the worst quarterback play in the league. At least this year, he was on IR most of last year. But since he signed that deal, Daniel Jones has been largely pretty fucking bad at football. And so they got bit by it. And it set him back 2 years. Who knows? Maybe they drafted, maybe they signed someone. Maybe there was someone else out there. Maybe they would have been in on Baker Mayfield when the Bucks got him. Maybe they get him instead for the last 2 years, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that gets them to another level, and they still are able to draft some playmakers and other things. Maybe Baker's on a smaller deal, which I do believe his average annual value is less than the $40 million that Daniel Jones got paid, and that's after he signed the extension. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the case. But if you got Baker Mayfield, maybe because you're not spending as much money, maybe you pay Saquon Barkley. Probably not, because I don't know why they didn't do it anyway, even with Daniel Jones knowing they're probably going to get rid of him. But maybe you bring back Saquon. So I don't know. I feel bad for Giants fans that a playoff win somehow fucked you over and set you back multiple years. Like I'm sure it's happened before, but that's wild. That's football in the state of New Jersey, man. Jerseyans, we always say, New York dumps their trash in New Jersey and then complains about New Jersey. And the Jets and the Giants right now are New York's trash that they have dumped in New Jersey, and it's bad football, man. It's bad football. Maybe Tommy Cutlets at least makes it fun. For Giants fans' sake, I hope you lose the rest of your games and you draft whatever quarterback you want, or you draft Travis Hunter and trade back up from the second round to get one of the quarterbacks. I hope things go exactly how you want them to go draft-wise, but that Tommy Cutlets comes in and the games are at least watchable and exciting. And I hope Daniel Jones signs with the Cowboys and for whatever reason, starts on Thanksgiving and we get Tommy Cutlets, Danny Dimes as a Cowboy on Thanksgiving, because otherwise that game is completely unwatchable. It'll be on, but that's prime nap time, baby. I hope that's the middle game, that we can all eat, enjoy the first game, sleep through that trash ass game that nobody wants to see anyway. Cowboys fans don't want to see it. Giants fans, not even fans of the team, want to see the team. Nobody wants to watch that shit. We'll sleep through that, wake up, get your second wind, maybe go back for seconds, get a slice of pie, watch the night game. I don't know what the night game is. Hopefully it doesn't suck. But that's all for a glorious, beautiful Friday bonus episode here. Kept it under 45 minutes for you. But as always, until next time, take it easy, football heads. Football heads!